Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What an absolute pleasure it is to be here at the Raisina Dialogues to talk about something that the world is fixated with, the AI race and where India finds itself in the race at this point in time, what's happening globally. It really depends on what tweet you're looking at and how quickly the world is changing depends on the news feed that you're broadcasting. But I've got a very astute set of panelists here with me, and we have 40 minutes, so without further ado, we're going to get cracking and get right to it. Vinod, Dham, first of all, congratulations on your Padma Bhushan. So a big round of applause for Mr. Dham here. But if I could get started by talking to you about this AI race that we seem to be talking about at this point in time. One, where does India find itself in the race? Are we in the race? Are we outside of the race? Are we at the middle of the race? Number two, what should we prioritize at this point in time from an Indian perspective as we talk about the AI landscape?
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me. Hello. Good evening. Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me to this panel. I took a few minutes to jot down my thoughts for this question. The rest of it, I'll just go explore. I think I have a 5-point plan for India to win the AI marathon. Of course, the first thing is you have to be in the marathon to win the marathon. So if you're not in the marathon, you don't win the marathon. And with that intent, actually, interestingly, I had come down here a couple of weeks ago and had the opportunity to meet with Honorable Ashwini ji, whom I meet in connection with being an advisor to the India Semiconductor Mission. And I had the same phone with these notes about what would it take to be in the marathon. And before I could even open my phone and talk about them, he had already gone the very evening, and I was waiting for him to inaugurate, I think somewhere in some hotel in Delhi, 14,000 GPU clusters for AI. So give him a big hand of applause. The reason I want to bring that up is this is not the India I knew 15, 20 years ago. This is India where they are one step ahead of even the ideas the advisors are bringing from abroad, which is really a remarkable thing to be knowing. So anyway, I think what I would like to talk about is there are 4 things needed to really succeed. First, of course, is skills. Now, skills for AI, if you already have IT or software skills, are not that hard to transform to. The reason is, fundamentally, people who are in software and IT services have a computer science degree. And if you have learned linear algebra, you have learned statistics, you have learned calculus, you can very quickly learn how to build neural networks, learn about deep learning, do the backpropagation, and learn about transformers, which was a single seminary event that really created ChatGPT and this whole OpenAI phenomenon in November of 2022. So I think it's not that hard for our kids to learn this technology, and we have deep talent and very wide talent, and that's the biggest strength India has when it comes to AI today. Now, when it comes to models, of course, there are companies like OpenAI and now a host of other companies who are also creating models, Google being one of them. And then there are open source models like Llama and Mistral and Falcon. So
you didn't mention DeepSeek.
I'm sorry?
You didn't mention DeepSeek.
I will mention DeepSeek, and I'll take a second to, let me first deal with DeepSeek because it seems like it's a thing waiting to be talked about. I will let actually Ronnie talk about DeepSeek. He's an expert. But my view of DeepSeek that I deeply studied and all the paper they published and everything that went on, and me personally losing 18% of my value of NVIDIA stock for a stupid reason, is really DeepSeek was built on top of OpenAI's training. So it's not like DeepSeek existed in vacuum and they just came up with $6 million investment and showed us how to do inference. And by the way, it was an inference step where they did some reasoning and they paused and they, of course, it required a lot of calculations and compute at that time as well. But really, DeepSeek is built upon OpenAI technology. It's built upon US technology. So I don't think they should, anyone should be misled to believe that by themselves only with $6 million and 4 engineers, they came up with a thing like that.
Okay.
At least that's my view. I'll let Ronnie tell me whether I'm right or wrong.
Yeah, I'll get to Ronnie in just a second, but you want to finish your...
I want to. So I think India should approach models with a hybrid approach. That is, they should use open models. And since it's very expensive to build, by the way, models, LLMs. So we don't need to spend billions of dollars that Ronnie has spent already. We can just leverage that and then build models in our multilingual languages in a hybrid approach. So that's one thing. And we need those models for government, medical, military, defense, and they should be proprietary. We should not use Western models to do very confidential things that we need in this country.
Okay.
And the last 2 points are, you need lots of compute, and to run the compute, you need lots of energy. And lots of compute being, we need lots of GPUs. And one of my recommendations would be, beyond the government of India really doing some private-public partnerships, do an ISM type funding. You know, the government of India, MITI, came up with $30 billion funding for semiconductor program. I think AI will need a similar kind of funding for next 3 years, $50, $100 billion type of investment to really run this marathon and stay competitive in this marathon. And energy is an important thing because these chips need a lot of power to run, and we will need to multiply our energy sources.
Well, thank you very much for setting the context for the conversation that we're about to have. So the big advantage really lies on the skills side. The big ask at this point in time is on infrastructure. Ronnie, I'll come to you in a second, but let me get Minister Vaishnaw to respond to what we've just heard there from Vinod Dham. Minister Vaishnaw, 1 year of the India AI mission, 14,000 GPUs on the table. You got a round of applause on that, but the ask now from Vinod Dham is we need the government to back this up with at least $20 to $30 billion of investment on the infrastructure side, do a semiconductor mission as far as the AI mission is concerned. Can you draw parallels with the experience that you've had on the semicon side? Can we expect you to replicate that on the AI side?
Absolutely, yes. And I thank Vinod for such a nice way of structuring the entire context. One, making GPUs available as a common compute facility. That's done. 14,000 GPUs already inaugurated. Two, the most important part of the entire AI journey is getting the data sets. So we have set up a common compute kind of structure called AI Kosh. That is also done. And today morning we signed an MOU, the India AI Mission and the Indian Parliament. We signed an MOU. So because Parliament has a very large data set in multiple languages over a period of time. So that will be a very good training resource for training our models. That's done. And many more other, like Doordarshan, All India Radio. There are many other sources of data which is available. Third, getting our own GPU chip. That's very, very important. And we have already started working on it, working with the industry, evaluating different options that we have. And we got really good, bright professors, bright startups who are willing to contribute to that journey. So that is also in place now. Hopefully we should be able to finalize the best option very soon. Fourth, having our own LLM, because whatever the world says, if it's open source today, it may not remain open source tomorrow, which we have seen in the case of OpenAI. I think we should also change the name. Better to have our own LLM. I don't think we should be shying away from that. So I think we are taking the problem in a very methodical, very systematic way. The part on talent is very important, and that's where we have a major advantage. And we have a template in front of us. In case of 5G, we set up 100 labs in universities so that the students can actually learn it on the real 5G environment, real tools. In case of semiconductors, 240 universities and institutes combined, 240 institutes we gave the latest EDA tools so that the students can actually learn what is a chip, how to design it, and really get their hands get the real experience. Similar approach we are following on AI also. So I think we'll be in a good shape, I would say.
On the GPU, Mr. Vaishnaw, a broad timeline by when you expect to finalize who you choose to partner with, just give some color on what we should expect on that front.
In short, 3 to 5 years, 3 to 4 years, I would say, to get your good, reasonably good capability GPU up and running. The approaches, basically there are two approaches which we are evaluating seriously, two different types of instruction sets. Which one we will finalize, or will we take both the instruction sets and move forward? That is something which the experts will decide.
Mr. Dham, he's keeping you on your toes. That was part of your wish list, that India should build its own GPU, and Ashwini Vaishnaw has already taken up that challenge.
Absolutely. I'm proud of him and proud of him saying that. And I think we need it. And also, the time frame he's given you is very reasonable, if not on the aggressive side, because these things are very complex. They take a very long time. And I think there's a lot of realism in what Ashwini ji just said.
Okay, Ronnie, let me come to you now. Number one, are we likely to see a name change anytime soon? But more importantly, I want you to put on your OpenAI hat, but I also want you to put on your former White House CHIPS Act coordinator hat and tell us what you believe the future holds as far as public-private partnership is concerned, and how do you believe it's likely to play out for an emerging economy like India? How important will that be?
Well, Shereen, first, thanks for having me, and it's an honor to be on a panel with Vinod, who's the father of the Pentium chip, one of the greatest innovators and investors, and the Honorable Minister, who's really leading the way around technology transformation in India. We've been here basically to listen, to understand what's going on in this market, and it's incredibly impressive. So when you think about the meetings we've had over the last couple of days, one, the Honorable Minister mentioned data sets, huge ingredient to building large language models. And India, and the government in particular, has done a fantastic job in terms of making those data sets, public data sets, more available, which is going to be really important to the future of AI. Two, people. I mean, I heard a statistic today that India graduates about 1 million or more STEM graduates every year, depending on how you identify STEM. And when you think about the talent base and their ability to adjust to what's hot in the market, that's an amazing advantage. Even when we talk about the transitions that are going to happen around the world because of AI, if you have 1 million people coming out every year with a new set of skills and a population of 30 years old or younger for the next 30 years, it's a huge opportunity for India to stay on the cutting edge. So you have that ingredient too. And now these investments in AI infrastructure, which is such an important piece of it, the data centers, the GPUs, the energy hookup. I mean, even on the stage, we've now launched a new AI infrastructure initiative. So we're making good progress. Here's the things I think are really interesting in India. One is, what are those killer applications going to be? When you think about the impact of AI on the economy, us economists, I'm very sorry, we're all over the place. We predict it'll be 1% of GDP, 30% of GDP. People have tons of different estimates. Why is that? Because we're still figuring out how this is being used in organizations. We're still seeing frictions to adoption in government, in business, into SMEs. But over time, you'll see a convergence on a huge economic impact. The question is, what are those applications and key verticals going to be? In India, it could be in education. It could be in defense or healthcare. It's going to be up to the people in the Raisina dialogue audience and around the country to figure that out. As someone who led the implementation of the CHIPS Act in the last administration in the United States, I can tell you I see a focus around the world, not just in the United States and India, around investments in critical technologies, supply chains, infrastructure. And I think it's reflective of a world where national security and the subject of this conference, geoeconomics, is becoming predominant. When I did my PhD, we lived in a world that was very globalized, where everything was about sort of knocking down barriers, trading, right, and assuming the best intents of countries around the world. Now we're entering into an era of more contention, nationalism, populism, and you're seeing countries around the world adjust accordingly. It doesn't mean to me, though, that the US and India can't have a very strong relationship and that OpenAI can't be a good part of it. I don't expect any name change for OpenAI, but ChatGPT might be called Chatterji GPT. But that is what I will promise the Honorable Minister. Okay, that's my own.
Well, we look forward to that. But Mr. Vaishnaw, that's a very important point that Ronnie mentioned there. In the world that we live in today, when we're talking about the escalation of tariff wars, we're talking about export controls, and which is why Mr. Dham is suggesting that you need to focus on proprietary technology, proprietary models. I want to understand from you, the partnership between India and the US, how do we build on that? We've had a partnership which is, of course, but in an AI era, In an AI age, what can India and the US do together? What do you foresee on that front?
I think we have very complementary strengths between India and US. If you look at it, today Stanford University ranks India as the biggest talent concentration in terms of AI. Every country needs the talent. Second, the diversity that we have, the kind of rich data we have, that would be one of the greatest resource for any country which wants to be in the race of AI. Two. Third, the way we have developed our relationship with the US, where the foundation of the relationship is trust. The foundation of the relationship is respect for IP rights. The foundation of relationship is to co-create and co-develop technologies. That thing is something which has happened over a period of last 10 years, and that is a very big strength for both the countries. I think the two of us will do a lot of things together. I think that will be a good win-win for the entire world.
But you don't believe that Make America Great Again could overshadow this partnership that you speak of?
See, I think today's world is quite different from the past when it was win-lose kind of situation. In the world of technology, I think it's more of win-win, and the pragmatism with which we are approaching our foreign policy, our Prime Minister is very clear in his mind, and our External Affairs Minister has a very practical approach. So with those two major ingredients, where we are looking at what can, how both the countries can really win and create things which are good for the humanity, good for the two countries, and they are following some of the most basic principles which in the world of technology are very important. I think that works well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to when Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji was in Washington last month, he talked about MAGA, which is what you're referring to, right?
Yes.
And he also talked about MEGA.
Yes.
And then he said both of them combined are like mega. So I think that's exactly what Ashwini ji is trying to indicate.
Well, that's the hope that we will be able to create that. But Mr. Dham, you've likened the AI race to what we saw happen as far as the nuclear race is concerned as well. What do you believe we need to be mindful of? What are the guardrails that you believe we need to put in place?
Yeah, it's like a nuclear race, because if US decides to only proliferate it, only to trusted partners, like India is one of the trusted partners, then it will be restricted to few countries. And we are fortunately on the right side, and we bring a lot of value, like Ashwini said, and hopefully we can return significant amount of value back into the system.
My question, Ronnie, also is, and as the chief economist at OpenAI, what are we talking about in terms of transformational impact? What is waiting for us at the end of the finish line? You talked about the killer apps that we need to really think about, that we need to focus on. At this point in time, what's the best estimate in terms of what happens on productivity uplift, what it means in terms of bridging the access deficits on healthcare, education, financial inclusion? I mean, take us through what you're reading into it at this point in time.
Sure. When I talk to folks around the world, their optimism about AI depends on the use case that they're familiar with. For a lot of people, ChatGPT is just typing something into a window and getting magic back, right? Editing your document, summarizing something. If you think about that, save you a lot of time at work, and you can spend that time on other more productive things. And what I'm seeing is 20 to 30% time savings in terms of return on investment for people using ChatGPT in that way. But if you really want to think about unlocking the economic impact at the scale of a place like India, I think you have to think further down the line. Think about our deep research tool that many people in the audience have worked with. Now you're moving from a helpful editor or summarizer to a PhD level research assistant, somebody who I can type to prepare for this panel some speaker notes and the bios of my fellow participants and moderator, and I can spend more time thinking about jokes about ChatGPT, right? So as you think about now with helpful research, it can scale your work in a different direction and increase productivity. Now, and Shereen and I talked about this earlier, now think about agents who can go, agentic AI, and start entirely new organizations and transact with one another, creating products that we never could have done on our own. The productivity increases of those types of applications could be immense. But what you're going to need in a world of agentic AI is trust and governance. So it goes back to Vinod's point, and he's seen this from the beginning of really foundational technologies. And the government role, of course, is going to play a big role here as well. But I think when we move to that world of agentic AI, the productivity benefits are going to look much more aggressive. You're seeing some economists think between 7 to 10% increases in productivity. That's not what we're seeing today, but over time, those are within reach if we embrace what this technology can actually do. We're not there yet. With most technologies, there is a period between invention and adoption. It's called the between times. It takes a little while for us to figure out how to use the steam engine, electricity, or the semiconductor integrated circuit. That's where we are with AI as well. But Shereen, it's moving incredibly fast.
It is moving incredibly fast. And Mr. Vaishnaw, since we're talking about being in the in-between phase at this point in time, and I think every government around the world is grappling with, at the end of the day, what do you do with this technology? What do you prioritize as far as the use cases are concerned? From an India perspective, if I were to ask you to list out for me where you believe you would like to unleash the power of AI to bring about true transformation, what would those areas be?
1, healthcare. 2, agriculture. 3rd, weather forecasting, basically meteorological matters. 4th, education. These would be the top 4.
These would be the top 4. And how do you believe you will be able to address some of these? Do you see a deeper public-private partnership at the end use to provide a last mile service, so to speak?
Absolutely. I think the AI revolution, or let's call it the new industrial revolution, this is just a beginning. What we have seen in the last 2 years is something that has been built upon what was happening in the industry, the mainstream industry. And what we are seeing now is probably just the chapter 1 of this entire book. It's really going to go far beyond what it is today. And what will really bring the productivity will be very frugal but very effective applications. That will change, let's say, one example of Baramati, where the farmers are today they have almost tripled their yield of sugarcane because of the use of AI. Let's say, take the case of some of the industrial applications where in case of maintenance, what was such a big, onerous, very difficult task to go under the machines and see what the situation. 4th, education. These would be the top 4.
These would be the top 4. And how do you believe you will be able to address some of these? Do you see a deeper public-private partnership at the end use to provide the last mile service, so to speak?
Absolutely. I think the AI revolution, or let's call it the new industrial revolution, this is just a beginning. What we have seen in the last 2 years is something that has been built upon what was happening in the industry, the mainstream industry. And what we are seeing now is probably just the chapter 1 of this entire book. It's really going to go far beyond what it is today. And what will really bring the productivity will be very frugal but very effective applications. That will change, let's say, one example of Baramati, where the farmers are today they have almost tripled their yield of sugarcane because of the use of AI. Let's say, take the case of some of the industrial applications where in case of maintenance, what was such a big, onerous, very difficult task to go under the machines and see what the situation of the different components is now getting very easily done using AI cameras with computer vision and getting those algorithms right and making sure that you are giving priority 1, 2, priority 3, priority 4 to the people who are actually going to maintain those equipment. So that's something which is going to going to change the entire thing in a very fundamental way. And I believe apart from the engine which is right now being talked about, that will just remain the engine, and that will also get commoditized in my personal opinion. I may be wrong, but that will get commoditized in coming years. And over and above that layer, the layer of applications is what is going to really make a big difference.
Yes, and I think we will get Mr. Dham to comment on that. But, you know, as Mr. Vaishnaw pointed out, one, of course, is the cost of compute, and we've already started to see that come down. Of course, not as much as we would like it to be. The commoditization as far as the engineer is concerned, and building on top of that. As we write the next few chapters in this story, Mr. Dham, what do you believe we should be looking forward to? What should we now expect as far as the next chapter is concerned? You also talked about being in the race to win it. You know, when we look at Ronnie and Stargate and $500 billion there in terms of infrastructure spend, I mean, it's an unequal race to start with. So, you know, how do we kind of look at this in a way that provides us perspective?
I think the way to look at it is really to focus on our domestic needs. And like Ashwini ji said, healthcare, very important element here. And we don't need to spend $500 billion to bring AI into improving longevity of our people, whether it's diabetes, high blood pressure, or any of the cancer issues. AI can help us get to those answers much faster and even reach remote areas in the villages where we don't have doctors available today. So we don't need to adopt US-style $500 billion star projects. We can look at it in a distributed way. India is very good at doing things like that. India never really imitates West, which is one of the best things I've seen. We really have nothing truly to imitate. We are a very old civilization with our own culture. The food is out of the world here. Who the hell wants to imitate anything from anywhere else? So we need to really keep that mindset going, even for the AI side. Pick the best of the things and apply them very intelligently, whether it's agriculture. I think one of the other areas that was not mentioned should be is warfare, in national security, in drones technology. The future wars will be fought,
So weaponizing AI or AI being used in
AI
weapons?
being used to weaponize. So all those things are very much likely in next 5 to 10 years.
Likely in the next 5 to 10 years. You know, let's talk about the capital that's going in. And I think, Ronnie, the question that's being asked today, and it's being asked by corporations, it's being asked by governments, is what is the return on investment? Stargate, $500 billion. What is going to be the timeline before we start to see a return on investments? How do you respond to the in-between phase of where you've got to put the capital in the hope of being able to see returns at the end of it?
So, the first thing I did when I took the job as the chief economist, I'm the first chief economist at OpenAI, so there wasn't really a predecessor. I spent time talking to the technologists and the people who are building these large language models. And those folks, they live in the future. You have to do that work, you have to live in the future and see the future in some ways. And when you understand the revolution that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years, where the capabilities of our models have grown so fast, things that people thought were impossible in the models are now possible. You start to understand that, the laws of scaling, as they're referred to, are going to require more compute. And that's why, as a company, right, we believe that infrastructure is destiny, and the investments in Stargate, properly calibrated with milestones in the right places at the right time, will make good sense. Now, there's been lots of challenges to these scaling laws over time, and you mentioned before, of course, the DeepSeek example. But even with our new models, our reasoning models, and you're seeing this rise of test time compute and the power of inference, which is also going to use a lot of compute. To me, just as Vinod said, I'm actually not too worried about these challenges to compute, because I think, as an economist, the cost of intelligence going down, the cost of compute going down is a good thing. And in fact, we're going to have so many applications to use it. Think about the applications that were already mentioned. I'll give you one more. In villages in India, when a child is born, we heard about this earlier today, there's often a question about low birth weight. But nobody knows exactly what the cutoff is and how to properly weigh the child. And you all know, if you're from India, some of the superstitions around handling children in that stage or having strangers handle a child. Well, now you can take a picture of that child, right, in a privacy-controlled way, and estimate the weight very precisely, which allows a healthcare worker, without visiting that village, to figure out whether the child is underweight and needs further medical attention. It's those kinds of innovations that can make the impact you're talking about. They don't require massive infrastructure investments yet, but they can be really useful. So this is kind of where I see a lot of opportunity here. If India decides also that this AI infrastructure bet is one they want to make, that's fantastic as well. But in the US, as we saw it, based on where the models are going, we think the return on investment is going to be very positive in the next 5 years.
Yes, just like to add, the talk in the media on the ROI is that if you just imagine the next move in AI is agentic models.
Yeah.
And agent is like a human. Just think of it like that. And if you have 10 agents working together, there are 10 humans working together. If they can create an output which can save, let's say at the minimum, one head count. One head count is like, in American terms, they talk about $10,000 a year, which is a reasonable number. Right? If you save $10,000 a year for a company, and you charge them $2,000 instead, which is a 5x saving for them, which is Microsoft charging its Copilot $250 a month. Suddenly their revenues and profitability will skyrocket. So this is the kind of thinking. I'm not saying it's going to come to fruition, but at least there is a
That's the bet.
thinking going on
That's
ROI
assumption.
as to how you're going to get there.
That's the assumption. Mr. Vaishnaw, let me come to you, sir, to really get a summation, so to speak, of what you've heard from these two gentlemen here, but more importantly also, your vision as far as the next year of the AI mission is concerned. What should we expect as the short-term milestones? What should we expect as the medium-term milestones? What should we expect as the long-term milestones?
For summary, go to OpenAI, Chatterji.
We need a proprietary vision, sir.
Immediate term, we must get our startups and academia and researchers and students the right tools, the right skill sets, making sure that our IT industry is geared up for taking it up as an opportunity, rather than thinking of it as a big challenge. That is the immediate term goal. Mid-term focuses on getting the LLM in place, making sure that our GPU strategy is progressing well, making sure that our universities have changed their course curriculums so that they are able to generate a continuous stream of well-trained, great talent. That is the mid-term. Long-term, of course, we need to keep our eyes focused on our goal of 2047. We definitely want to take lead in some of the most important technologies.
You know, and again, I want to just go back to that 2047 goal as well and link that to what we heard there from Ronnie in terms of economic impact. There are assumptions that, economists are working with. What's the assumption that you're working with on how much AI and the transformative impact of AI you can harness to be able to get to the 2047 goals?
See, when new technologies come, getting the ROI equation solved for it, I don't think that's the absolutely the right approach. I think when new technology comes, we must invest in it. We may not know what exactly the returns would be, but for a country or for a company or for an organization to be able to compete ahead, that investment in technology must be continuous, for sure. How AI will play out in the next 20-30 years, I think it will be something that we'll have to kind of modulate our approach. We'll have to see how it plays out. As I said, this is just the chapter 1. And as AI evolves, and there's going to be a lot of mathematical innovation which will go into this. I remember my IIT days where I built the first text-to-sound transformer, that T in GPT, right? So that transformer which I built, from those days things have changed a lot. But some of the fundamental math behind neural networks, some of the fundamental math behind AI, that remains constant. So that math, when it gets applied into the newer AI models, that's going to bring about changes which we, at this point of time, we can't even imagine. What I would say is embrace technology, use it properly, make sure that it is good for society, and make sure that the harms which can come from it are also controlled.
What is exciting you the most as an engineer? Are you reliving your IIT days? Do you feel like you want to be back in a lab, Mr. Vaishnaw, tinkering at this point in time?
A couple of days back, I was in IIT Madras, and the energy of that place was phenomenal. Those boys are doing some good work on Hyperloop, and I'm the 72nd member of that team. So it was real fun. That gives tremendous amount of energy. IITs have their own charm.
Yeah, they certainly do have their own charm. I'm going to end by asking you, because I know the minister has a hard stop at 6:40. Are we in the race? Are we at the starting point? Where are we today?
We are very much in the race. We are in the first inning of the race, not at the starting point. And like Ashwini said, it's a multi-inning race. This will go on for a long time. And we need to just stay there and continue to invest appropriately and make sure we don't fall too far behind.
I'm glad that you've moved from race to cricket, which is probably appropriate of an analogy to close the conversation when we talk about where India finds itself, the role and relevance of AI. Ronnie, I'll give you the final word.
Well, first, just thank you. And I think going back to the IIT Energy, the students and young people in India are really the future in a big way. And I think leveraging the universities to produce cutting-edge innovation, to improve on this is something that's worked in other parts of the world. And I think that's another opportunity here with India, given how many people are going to university and the kind of research happening at institutions all around the country. So I'm just excited to watch and support however I can.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for joining us here. There's plenty of optimism, confidence, and maybe get the three of you back to talk about where we find ourselves in the AI race and all the suggestions that you've made and the promises that the government has made to take that forward. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the speakers and, of course, the moderator. If I could invite all...